The government has actually now said, 2 years ago, that if you are a venture capital fund, we want you to be regulated. This is very important for founders. They've asked me to talk about the ecosystem in Singapore. Singapore has been an example for a lot of ecosystems before we're going to talk about Singapore. But then if you look at the number of deals done, a lot of companies will have their holding in Singapore. And a lot of the capitalists like ourselves are based out of Singapore. And it has to do with regulation, it has to do with politics, it has to do with big families investing, it has to do with education system. Singapore has decided they want to be a hub for Southeast Asia, which also means that they want to attract talent. So what are some of the things that you need to do? As a government, you need to be supportive to business. So if you want to open up a company in Singapore, it will take you 24 hours. It will literally take you 24 hours and you can do it online. So this is very, very important. One of my friends was complaining, he opened up a new bank account in Singapore. It took him 4 hours. And he said it was too long. I said in Europe, it takes 2 weeks. So Singapore has been extremely progressive when it comes to doing business. If you look at acquisitions, over 60% of the acquisitions are done by foreign companies. So why is that important? It means that regulation is very favorable for foreign companies. Looking to acquire companies, actually Singapore makes it relatively easy to do business in this country. And that is really important when it comes to investments and kind of building that ecosystem. Briefly talk about government and regulation. The government has actually now said, 2 years ago, that if you are a venture capital fund, we want you to be regulated. This is very important for founders. So although Singapore is strict when it comes to being an investor, they're also very helpful. So we talk on a regular basis with the regulators. How should we evolve the ecosystem and how can regulation help? The government has launched sandboxes for blockchain companies to do POCs with larger banks. They've worked with banks on accelerator programs and incubation programs. So very, very progressive approach. If a professor has an idea, he's able to launch the idea and make it an actual company and get an investment. So very, very progressive. Google increased their headcount in Singapore by 1,000 developers. Facebook is increasing their office space. So all the big guys see Singapore as a hub, and that attracts more talent, and that talent also attracts more startups. Singapore has the best environments for IP protection when it comes to IP lawyers, when it comes to support from the government, and very, very strong legal environment. So what Singapore has basically done is, they said we're creating a complete environment around the entrepreneur, which helps them in their entire journey. The company is not founded in Singapore, but when they moved their headquarters to Singapore, the main reason was we want to attract and retain talent. So Singapore is able to attract large companies to build their headquarters there. Actually, a number of startups have decided to open up R&D centers specifically in Singapore because it makes it easier to retain talent.
I had a question about what is the mechanism for you to really find out which startups to invest, or how do you actually meet them?
So I think our approach is very community driven. So one great source for us is actually our existing portfolio. So the founders we've invested in, they know what we like, they know our style. So they tend to refer other founders to us. So that's kind of one form. The second one would be, we use a lot of data. So as a firm, we're all techies ourselves. So we use a lot of data in our firm to, I would almost say, predict where the next industry that's gonna grow fast, and then we look for companies within that industry. Still, conferences like this, we try to be out there speaking at conferences, at universities, host events, and it's a great way to kind of meet people.
Prepared by Gate Ventures' Michael Lints. Please give him a big hand.
Thank you.